Water, be it fresh or marine, be it to drink or generate power, be it to sustain human life or precious ecosystems, it must be clean. Hands-on sees how polluted wetlands in Bangladesh are being freshened up, and how irrigation canals fitted with $25 American portable turbines can produce enough electricity for local homes.
With 200,000 lakes, water is perhaps Finland's biggest natural asset. Used for everything from transport to a post-sauna dip, the lakes also supply drinking water to 5 million citizens. In 2003, a UN survey ranked Finland's water first out of 122 countries, the cleanest water in the world. So what makes this H2O better than anyone else's? Water from underground sources is usually clean and needs little treatment, but the surface water in lakes and rivers contains large amounts of organic matter that has to be removed before drinking.
The problem here is that we have the surface water, which is mainly used for producing drinking water, is quite a humid one, and that's why we need very advanced methods for treatment of it to a high quality drinking water.
Dissolved air flotation, or DAF, is how Finland bubbled its way to the top of the world's water league. 150 kilometres north of Helsinki is the Rusko water treatment plant. The trick is using tiny air bubbles.
In the DAF process, we add to water fine bubbles that bind to flocks and makes flocks then float to the surface of the unit.
DAF goes through 4 separate steps. Step 1. Add chemicals to the lake water. They force the organic matter to the top. Step 2. Add air bubbles to push more organic clots to the surface. The sludge forms a blanket over clean water and can be removed easily. Step 3. Channel the purified water into the basins with sand filters, a chance to scoop up any last bits of organic matter. Step 4. Neutralise the odour and taste. Another advantage of the technology is its low cost.
One of the benefits of the flotation unit that we have used since 2000 is that it was able to use old basins. In fact, all the construction that we did was wood, so wood is quite cheap material and the process is quite cheap to build.
Every day, scientists monitor the cleaned water to make sure it's the highest quality, but the treatment cycle goes beyond the plant's walls.
The biggest concern today is the treatment of municipal wastewater, so that we can keep our waters in a good condition.
Thanks to DAF purifying both lake and urban wastewater, Finns now enjoy the cleanest water in the world. And the technique is being exported to other countries.
We are exporting already this to England, Scotland, USA and Canada.
Hanoi, the commercial capital of Vietnam, epitomises a country gaining Asian tiger status. Living standards are rising fast. But outside the cities, it's a different story. For most households, electricity is still a distant dream. At night, oil lamps or torches are the only source of light. But that's changing thanks to a centuries-old idea. 150 kilometres from Hanoi, it's mountain country. Home to the Muong, an indigenous ethnic group. Many are rice farmers, and few can afford the electricity from the new pylons that line the valleys. Instead, they're turning to a cheap alternative, using one of these, a pico-hydro turbine. All you need is a constant water supply and a slope with a 1-metre drop. That creates a steady flow to drive the turbine fast enough for the electromagnet at the top to generate electricity. This is connected to the house, giving it a direct power supply.
With pico-hydro you can use it for lighting, for a radio and for an electric fan. If the house has a TV, you can use it for that too.
All over the area, people have opted for pico-hydro. Imported 300-watt turbines, costing about $20 each, are the most popular. In some villages, nearly every household has one. The streams at the bottom of the valleys power a low-tech grid local people have built for themselves. This way, everyone has a chance of getting connected. When night falls, houses with turbines are able to switch on.
With better lighting, my wife can work and walk in the house easier, and my children have better light to do their homework.
Unfortunately, there were problems. After a few months, the turbines lose power before eventually stopping altogether. This family's story is typical. The turbine they bought 3 years ago gave enough power for lights, a radio and CD player, but now they're back to life without power because the machine has failed. People here blame it on shoddy technology.
There are two problems with pico-hydro from China. One is the ball bearings, and the other is the electromagnetic coil.
At the local village workshop, there's a constant stream of broken turbines coming in for repair. But although the mechanic can do makeshift repairs, many can't afford even this. Back in Hanoi, a hydro technologist supported by the UK Department for International Development, or DFID, stepped in to sort things out.
Bằng cách là chúng tôi là thiết kế lại các cái turbine để cho nó đạt hiệu quả suất cao hơn. Thứ hai là các máy phát.
We've improved it by redesigning the turbine to get higher efficiency.
Từ trường rất mạnh, do đó có thể là tăng công suất và giảm kích thước của máy.
The new design works with reliable bearings and electromagnets that don't need constant replacing. In the workshop, they've started small-scale production of the new turbines. These Vietnamese turbines are a more reliable alternative, and the new design gives higher performance for low-wattage models. The new local model costs double the imported, but the production team is confident prices will soon fall. Already, those who can afford it have made the investment. And even though this man has the means to connect to the national grid, he's so pleased with his new turbine's performance, he's chosen not to.
Nhưng mà như tôi nói hôm nãy đấy, là cái sự mà cái tỷ lệ mà nghèo nào vẫn còn.
If we use electricity from the grid, we have to limit our usage, and sometimes we have power cuts. But you are always able to use pico-hydro.
Thì nó thông dụng hơn và nó không bao giờ nó mất cả, trừ trường hợp máy hỏng.
With this improved technology, people wherever they live can now have their own guaranteed electricity supply for an affordable one-off payment. Being isolated no longer has to mean not connected. Dancing is part of Brazil's lifeblood, and here in the northern town of Aroba, citizens are using it for an important life-saving ritual. It's not a new version of the samba, but an essential part of a simple and cheap technology to purify their drinking water. By doing the morning shake for a daily 20-second burst, they can avoid serious illness or even death caused by waterborne diseases. Aroba's water treatment plant is old, and the water it provides to 20,000 inhabitants is unfit for drinking. Here at the local high school, the science teacher is ramming home the importance of purifying their drinking water.
Insalubrious water is water which is not healthy to drink. In our city, we don't have well-treated water. Today, we're going to talk about a very simple method. The name of this method is
SODIS stands for Solar Water Disinfection Process, introduced to Brazil and other countries by Hans Haller. And this is how SODIS works. Thoroughly clean a plastic or glass bottle. 2-litre bottles are the best size. Fill 3/4 full with water you want to drink. Shake for 20 seconds to oxygenate the water. This helps to break down microorganisms. Completely fill the bottle and screw on the top. Place the bottle where the sun can reach it. Rooftops are good. Expose the bottles to sunlight for 6 hours. Standing them on a black plastic bag improves the efficiency. The sun's ultraviolet radiation eliminates virtually all bacteria, viruses and microorganisms that cause disease. Finally, you have safe drinking water on tap.
The SODIS method can be used in many countries, but especially those close to the equator with high solar radiation and where the population has no access to conventional water treatment.
Então, o método SODIS usado nesses países pode reduzir bastante a incidência de doenças de veiculação hídrica.
Luis Barbosa has been a community health worker for 10 years, looking after 118 families. He's noticed the difference the SODIS water treatment has made to the health of his community.
A diferença que houve e o tratamento que estamos fazendo aqui hoje.
The water treatment we're using here in this municipality is SODIS. That is purification through sun's rays. And it's working well because the children are healthy, the kids are smiling, and they're enjoying a healthier life.
As crianças estão tendo vida saudável.
Como nós sabemos, há uma elevada taxa de índice de mortalidade infantil, principalmente nos países subdesenvolvidos, que é o caso do nosso país.
As we know, there's a high rate of infant mortality in developing countries such as ours. All the students of our school have taken the initiative to do this project along with people from the municipality to create an awareness of the importance of clean water, treated water, for the benefit of our health.
Da importância da água boa, da água tratada, que com certeza vai ser o quê? Boa para a saúde, não é?
O método SODIS é bastante barato, um método de baixo custo.
SODIS is an inexpensive method because you use available resources at no cost. All you need is the sun's radiation and beverage containers, which are considered disposable.
Resíduos e são descartáveis.
Collecting water is the day's first chore for countless millions of women in the developing world. But in Sri Lanka, they've devised a system that can bring water direct to your doorstep all year round.
I think water is the primary thing in life, and if I can find a solution to problems of water in Sri Lanka, then I think that was my aim.
Tanuja's group is dedicated to putting rainwater to good use. They've come up with an unusual design for a tank that stops it going to waste.
Basically, it's a very simple system. The rain that falls on the roof is delivered through this gutter system into the tank for storage.
With a simple bucket filter of gravel and charcoal, the rainwater is purified as it enters the tank. The stored water is safe to drink for months after the end of the rainy season. A full storage tank contains enough for a family of 5 for over 8 months, on tap right on the doorstep. With Sri Lanka emerging from a long drought, its age-old rain storage reservoirs had silted up. The water in many pumps and wells is undrinkable because the groundwater is too salty or otherwise contaminated. Even though this family has a well on its property near the coast, they can't drink the water from it. A common problem is mineralisation of the water supply, which can lead to kidney damage.
I
had to go about 2 miles to get good water. I had kidney trouble because we took water from a local pump, and then when I went to another well, I found I still had the same problem.
After the tank was installed, life became a lot easier. Her kidney complaints disappeared, and she no longer has to walk 7 kilometres to get water. There's even enough to supply her neighbours. It's a low-tech solution to a pressing problem, and Tanuja's group is working to spread rainwater harvesting know-how. There are 3 priority areas: those with contaminated groundwater, hilly upland areas, and dry zone provinces where water supplies dry up after the rainy season. The first step is to teach local masons. This group of 12 have been chosen for a 3-day masterclass in the art of building rainwater tanks. The morning is spent on a theory session, and then the team are off for hands-on experience. It usually takes 2 builders 5 days to finish a tank. Here, a master mason from Colombo keeps up the pace with step-by-step instructions. After the foundations are laid, a specially designed frame is assembled. This is wrapped with chicken wire and covered with concrete, trowel by trowel. Although it looks complicated, the master mason says the building method is easily picked up.
Anybody who really wants to construct a tank, they can. There's no problem. If they follow the instructions properly, they can construct the tank.
When the concrete is dry, the original frame can be taken out and reused repeatedly. Outside towns, it's often cheaper for people to get water by building tanks than for the government to pipe it to them. Through the forum's work, supported by the UK Department for International Development, or DFID, there are now 15,000 storage tanks across rural Sri Lanka, and there are local pools of trained builders throughout the country. Used carefully, the tanks can supply more than just drinking water. Many households already grow their own vegetables during the wet season, but rainwater can be used to guarantee veggies through the dry months as well. This family have opened their own roadside grocery shop, a new source of income from their own backyard.
We sell 2 to 3 kilograms per day. We don't harvest every day, but days we do harvest, we make about 100 rupees.
Back in Colombo, the water supply is under threat as demand exceeds supply. Urban water harvesting may be the solution. If it works in the countryside, why not in the cities? Tanuja's group has been summoned to their first meeting at the Ministry of Urban Development and Water Supply. The minister seems convinced they can work together, and they're looking at bringing in effective new laws.
This was our ultimate aim, to get, for the government to recognise rainwater harvesting as an option. So I think all our hard work, 8 years, I think paid off today.
Every year, 20,000 tonnes of marine litter is dumped into Europe's North Sea. 15% floats on the water, 15% is washed up on beaches, and 70% sinks to the bottom. Rubbish contaminates catches and damages fishing nets. It also endangers the health of wildlife, fish, birds and seals. Anxious to clean up the mess, 10 European countries have come together in a Save the North Sea scheme. Last year, 54 boats from 8 North European harbours collected around 210 tonnes of marine rubbish. The coastal town of Vida Sanda is home to 10 fishermen from the Fishing for Litter scheme. Henrik has set out early in the morning to fish for 6 days. His ship carries a blue flag, showing Henrik is a fisherman who doesn't dump litter. Instead, any litter caught in his nets will be brought back to port. When fishing, time is valuable, and losing it to litter costs money. Over 6 days, Henrik will catch 2 tonnes of rubbish.
This is too much. It's a problem. It's a real problem for us. We have some oil cans, some with paint, and the paint are not drying under the water. So when we are taking the fish hole in and it's running out, it's spoiled. Here we have plastic. It's also a very big problem.
Back on land, the rubbish is sorted at harbours sponsored by the Save the North Sea campaign. It's separated into wood, fishing nets, plastic bags, iron and steel cables. The haul is massive. Most of it comes from fishing boats themselves, but oil rigs, leisure boats and tankers also use the North Sea as a rubbish dump. Often this is done deliberately. Extra holes have been drilled in these barrels to make sure they sink out of sight to the sea floor. Since collecting litter, Danish fishermen have noticed a difference in their catches. More fish, less rubbish. Now Denmark has taken fishing for litter one step further. Instead of disposing of the rubbish, they reuse it. In Skagen, a recycling machine cuts the sorted litter into pieces so small they can be remade into new plastic products.
This machine is special because it's actually one of the kind in Denmark which can recycle so many various kinds of waste.
Harbours have to pay a tax to dispose of litter. It's a major concern for harbour masters.
We do take all the production waste from all kinds of seagoing vessels that comes in. If the harbour has a lot higher task on handling waste due to a larger amount and still has to pay this waste tax as regulated by the government, that will put a strain on our economy in the future. And as such, that might not be a motivating factor to take in more waste actually.
If taxes for waste management are kept low, fishing for litter can bring better catches for fishermen and safeguard the marine environment. Bangladesh is home to one of the world's biggest textile industries. Accounting for 3/4 of exports, it employs around 2 million directly and 10 million indirectly. Most are women. But there's a hidden cost. Harmful chemicals used to bleach, dye and soften the fabrics are leaking, often pouring, into the country's watercourses. A team from the Stockholm Environment Institute joined Bangladeshi scientists and a local NGO to carry out research with communities in the Kaliakuri region, where the textile industry has expanded rapidly. Interviewing locals is their first task.
What do you think is causing the drop in fish?
All the mills and industries which have come into this area have released a lot of stuff into the water so that the water stinks. It's really bad and the fish has decreased. During the monsoon season the fish have increased a little bit, but before there were hardly any fish in the water.
Sometimes if I'm not watching, my children go into the water, and when they come out they have sores on their skin and it itches a lot. The mill factories and mill owners should become socially aware and take responsibility for the situation. Plus you are here, and with your help all this can be stopped.
Because of all this pollution, we cannot eat the fish. The fish smells of kerosene and the water is polluted, and our household is being harmed by this pollution. But the mills have brought employment and provided us with work opportunities in Bangladesh. So there is a good side to it, but at the same time, it's bringing pollution. So there's good and bad.
People's observations are backed up by tests on the pH level of the water.
We're looking at the pH here, a set of parameters just to see what it's like in the environment and also what kind of levels we're having coming out of the factory. So each time we come, we take a sample from that point, take it back to our lab, do some analysis in our lab, and also send some to an independent lab. And it just depends on what's happening, what bath is being dropped out at the moment, because this is flowing straight from the factory. And because every time they drop, it's going to be a different component of the dyeing process, and sometimes it will reach something like pH 11, 11.5.
In an environment of pH 11 and above, fish and other aquatic life are unlikely to survive. Back in the UK at Leeds University, Samir and colleagues carry out lab-scale experiments they hope will create convincing solutions for factory owners. Based on sensible housekeeping practices, these solutions show that money doesn't have to be poured down the drains of Bangladesh.
The key element, once you achieve the right recipe to produce the shade that is required, is to record the exact recipe and then follow the same method with the amount of dyes and chemicals used, and just scale it up and replicate it on the factory floor. What happens in our factories is, because the lab to bulk recipe is not followed, you end up having to re-dye or reshade, and a lot of the dyes end up going into the environment.
What you're trying to do is get an even dyeing across the fabric. If you don't get the conditions right, optimal conditions, temperature, pH, and monitor that, what you get is what is known as ring dyeing, which is an uneven colour across the fabric. Buyers don't like that because the dye can rub off the fabric.
The best way would be to make sure that they get the right shade first time.
But the research team's most important challenge is gaining the trust of the factory and mill owners. Together they can work out a strategy to reduce industrial pollution and cut down on waste and costs. The owner of this medium-sized mill employs 1,000 people making garments for export to the UK, France, Germany and Canada.
This business, I would still say, in its infancy, the dyeing business. Most of the owners are very, very conscious about the environment, but we didn't have any proper solutions to the problems that we are facing. That's where they come in. We have been working for the last 2 years, particularly looking at this area called Kaliakuri.
It's definitely not an impossible situation. The dyes obviously stand out the most, the colors, so people complain about that. But it is the issue of high pH
and the sulfide problems, which is more of a threat to health.
Just simply by going to the industries over and over and getting them to trust us and showing them that they can reduce costs as well as helping us to reduce the pollution, I think they've been won over by it.